we're going to set up the pages for our trifold brochure template. Now, to do that, we've already created a new document, that one that we built in the last unit. And we can see, as the Pages panel is up, that we've created 1, 2 document pages, and we have a single master page that rides over both of those. So I'm going to double click on the A master page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a couple of folding lines that I'm going to use for designing my trifold brochure template. I'm going to go into the vertical ruler, and when I put my cursor in here and hold the mouse button down, you'll see it changes into a bar with arrows pointing left and right. And as I drag this onto the screen, what it'll do is it'll allow me to place a ruler guide for where the first fold is going to come between the first and second panels of our trifold brochure template. Now, I know I've hit the exact right point there, because if I look into the control panel to the upper left here of our screen, I'll see that's set at 3.5 inches. If I look at the horizontal ruler, I'll see that the tick mark between 3 and 4 is at exactly 3.5 inches, because the tick mark disappears there on the ruler. And then finally, I'll get a little indicator right next to my cursor that shows on my X factor, or X dimension if you will, that I'm set at 3.5 inches. I'm going to release the mouse button now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to set a second ruler guide at 7 inches. Again, I'll know I hit the exact right spot, because as I look at the control panel, it shows I'm at 7 inches. If I look at the horizontal ruler, I'll see that the tick mark disappears right next to 7, and that if I look at the little proxy view just to the right of my cursor, it shows I'm at exactly 7 inches. So when I release the mouse button, we'll have set the fold lines for the first and second panels of our trifold brochure, and then for the second and third panels of our trifold brochure. Now, as I've built this on the master page, what I'll see if I double click on page 1 is that I have the same information. If I double click on page 2, once again, I'll see I have the exact same information. I'm going to go back to page 1, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to account for a common problem that most people have when they design trifold brochures. But since you're taking this Total Training in Design course, I can show you how to avoid it. Now, you may remember when I did the introduction for this chapter that when I folded those 3 panels together, they kind of bowed out in the middle. It didn't sit flat. It didn't sit very cleanly. That often happens when you set 3 panels, first, second, and third panels of exactly the same size. What experienced designers do to keep that from bowing out and that trifold brochure to sit nice and flat is that they'll slightly reduce the size of the panel that folds inside, what's known as the gatefold or peekaboo panel, so it fits within the area that will be folded for the back panel and the cover panel for our trifold brochure. The way I do that working with InDesign CS6 is I use the page tool right here. If you're working with a single column tools panel, it's the third button down from the top. If you're working in the 2 column panel, it would be the second from the top on the left hand side. Also, before we make any adjustments, look at your reference point locator on the left side of the control panel, right above the tool panel here, and make sure you have the right reference point selected like I do. Your center point may be selected by default. I'm going to go back for that single column tool panel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the size of the page that I'm working with right here. Now, I can do that by dragging from these handles, just like so. But that's a difficult thing to do to make it precisely right. I'll often find it's a lot easier when I'm changing the sizes of the page to do that with precise numerical control working from my control panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the frame of reference here from the right side, and I'm going to reduce the size of this entire page from 10.5 inches to 10 3/8 and 10.375 inches. And when I hit the Tab key, we'll see that that is narrowed just a little bit, but you'll notice that those nice folding lines that we set on the page here are now skewed. They're distorted. They're no longer in the center of those column gutters that define our three panels. We need to fix that by adjusting our margins a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my selection tool and get that right here from the Tools panel. To go to the Layout pull-down menu, I'm going to go to Margins and Columns, and I'm going to change the left side margin from 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch. Basically taking out that difference that we set for the margin before. And when I say OK, you'll notice that it takes my ruler guides and once again places them smack in the center for those fold lines we want between our three panels. Now I have another complication that's come into play here. You'll notice if I look at this far left panel, my peekaboo panel, if I'm doing a rollover fold for my trifold brochure, that this is no longer centered inside of this panel. I need to give this a little bit of a cheat. And I'm going to do that by first zooming in close so I can see what I'm working with. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command 4 since I'm working on the Mac platform. If you're working with a Windows PC, what you'd want to do is you'd want to use the keyboard shortcut Control 4 to go for that 400% display view. I'm going to move over to the left-hand column here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of that 1/8 of an inch difference, or 1/16 of an inch. In decimal terms, that's 0.0625, and make the adjustments for this panel. I'm going to go over here one more time to my vertical ruler, and I'm going to drag a vertical ruler guide 1 tick mark, or 1/16 of an inch. That's 0.1875 for 3/16 of an inch from the page trim. I'm going to do the same thing, once again going back to my vertical ruler, and I'm going to drag that over 1/16 of an inch, just like so. And that's going to set up a faux column that's going to be centered for that shorter or gatefold panel that I'm building. Let me go back to the Fit and Window view by going Command 0, since I'm working on the Mac platform for this chapter. If you're working with a Windows PC, your keyboard shortcut would be Control 0 to get back to our Fit and Window view. Now we've set up the first page for our trifold brochure. Let's go to the second page by simply double-clicking on it in the Pages panel. We could have also changed that right down here to the lower left-hand corner of our document window. And what we've done here is we've set up this page that we're going to build inside our trifold brochure. Now, I'm going to change the rules just a little bit. We set the front of the brochure for a landscape view. So when I take a look at it, it reads as a very vertical piece. I want to do the same thing. I want to see this page inside vertically. And the way that I can do that is by either going in here to the page icon that I've got in my Pages panel and right-clicking if I have a 2-button or more button mouse, or if I'm working on a Mac with a single button mouse, I'd hold down the Control key and then click to open up the flyaway menu. Another way I can do that is I can go to the flyaway menu here for the Pages panel. I'm going to go to Page Attributes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the spread view, or this page, and I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees counterclockwise. So when I click on that, it's going to take this page and it's going to rotate that from a landscape or wide view to a portrait or a tall view. I'm going to go Command 0 once again to go to that Fit and Window view. If you're working on a Windows PC, Control 0 will do the same thing. And as I look at this, I can see this page shows up and down, but also if I look at it here, I'll see that the page is still laid out as far as InDesign is concerned as a landscape page. It's just turned it around so I can see that and I can design vertically for the inside of my trifold brochure. Now, again, I need to account for that gatefold information that we had before. So I'm going to go back to my Pages tool. I'm going to work from the top down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the width, or in this case as it appears, height of that page, okay, from 10.5 inches to 10.375. And as I do that, it's going to once again skew where those folding lines are as we see them clearly working with the inside of our trifold brochure template. I'm going to go back to the selection tool, and what I'm going to do is once again I'm going to go to the layout pull down menu and I'm going to go to margins and columns. I need to remember what I've done here is that I've rotated this page. Okay, so I took it from a landscape view and I took what was the left side margin, and when I rotated it 90 degrees counterclockwise, it appears as the bottom of my page, but as far as InDesign is concerned, it's still my left side margin. So I'm going to change that from 0.25 to 0.125, and as I do that and I say OK, what that's going to do is, just as we had for the first page, is it's going to set that in such a way that these folding guides that we put in the middle of this are going to be in the center of that gutter or subdivision that we've built for the page. What I need to do here is I need to put those faux column guides down just like I did on the first page of our trifold brochure template. And to make that easier, I'm going to go Command 2 so I can see the width of the entire panel on my screen here. If you're working on a Windows PC, that keyboard shortcut would be Control 2. And I'm going to go down here to the bottom panel, and I'm going to set this up so that I've got a, in this case, horizontal ruler guide. So I'm going to go to the horizontal ruler, and I'm going to bring that in to the point to where that shows. I want to make that 1.875, and you'll notice I can't hit that precisely with this ruler. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that in. I'm going to click to select the guide. I'm going to take that and I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to put exactly 1.875, and it's going to place that guide precisely at 3/16 of an inch. Now I need to do the same thing here at the top of the panel. So I'm going to go into my horizontal ruler. I'm going to set this in as it's showing here at 3.125, and I'm going to bring that up to the point to where it should be 1.875. Now you'll notice once again I can't hit that number. That's okay. All I have to do is, with it highlighted, put exactly that number in from the control panel, and it'll adjust that exactly the way I want it to be. I'm going to go Command 0 to go in my Fit in Window view, and it's time for us to save our handiwork. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the File pull-down menu, and I'm going to select the Save menu command. Now, as I do this, the keyboard shortcut is Command S working on the Mac platform. If you were working in the Windows platform, of course, it would be Control S. I'm going to take this and I'm going to save this in Chapter 5 of my Project Files InDesign CS6 Essentials folder as my first name, so it would be Randy, and in this case the number 5, so I know that's what we're doing for this section of it. And instead of saving this as an InDesign CS6 document, I'm going to save this as an InDesign CS6 template. And when I click on that, and I click the Save button, you'll see that it names the file Randy5, but instead of the INDD for InDesign document file suffix that we had in previous chapters for our InDesign CS6 course, it shows us INDT. That T stands for template. We'll show how that makes life so much easier later in our InDesign CS.